Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm Melanie Risden with the Western Standard. We're just going to do a live check-in right now in Ottawa. We're going to Parliament Hill right now. We're going to check in with Chris Scott, who has been in Ottawa since the Freedom Convoy arrived, and just looking to do a quick check-in with you, Scott. Chris, how's everything going? How's the sentiment in Ottawa right now?
Well, it's going really well. It's a really positive vibe everywhere I go. People are, it's unbelievable how people are coming together to make this thing a success. We were just taking pictures of people pulling wagons with jerry cans of diesel, asking truckers if they need fuel. We get people coming up to our door and bringing us hot soup and coffee and things like that. So it's absolutely amazing.
And you've been there since, did you roll in on the weekend? Saturday, was it?
I don't know. It's all a blur. When did we get here? I think we got here Friday. Yeah, we got here on the Friday.
Yeah, I'm sure it has been a blur. So so I understand there were a horde of trucks and vehicles that came through on the weekend. Some have left now, but how many would you say have stuck around?
Oh, that's a good question.
Good question.
I don't know. There's a few streets still full of trucks. Wellington, which is just runs parallel to the parliamentary grounds, is almost full. There are some gaps in there for where guys have had to leave. It's they have other commitments and jobs coming up and stuff like that. So it's not as full as it was, but it's also too important to remember that there's hundreds of trucks stationed outside of town that haven't been able to get in. So what happened was when we were pulling into town, the OPP had just started to put up barricades and roadblocks, and they were basically directing or stopping traffic from going down Wellington. And then they even started pulling graders and stuff across intersections downtown to stop trucks from continuing to plug up the downtown core. So a lot of those trucks that were in the convoy are outside of town. They've set up tents and shelters and food stations, and they got clothing down there. It's absolutely unbelievable. And I can't stress enough how amazing it is, the support that people have given this group. And it's not just people who came with them. These are people from Ontario and people who live in Ottawa that have really stepped up to make this a success.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of support, I understand that the GoFundMe for the Freedom Convoy has now exceeded $10 million, if I have that correct.
As far as I know, yeah. And it's important to point out with that I don't think I've ever seen any movement, or especially a political one, that's garnered that kind of support ever. So $10 million, a political party would be just beside themselves raising that much cash in that short of time, but it just doesn't happen. So that $10 million is a very, very significant measure of the amount of support that Canada is giving this cause.
Chris, what's the game plan? How long are you there? What's going to happen?
Well, that's a good question. So, of course, the end goal is to force the government or convince the government to end the COVID mandates and restrictions and get us back to a place in Canada where we're not divided by the country's leadership, and we can start getting back to accepting each other's choices. So that's the ultimate goal, is to get rid of the mandates. Now, there are some who think that this is some sort of a blockade that's going to force the government to do something to concede to the demands of this group and just drop the mandates. And I really don't see it like that. The way I see this is this movement has basically, it's united Canada for sure, and it's ignited Canada. So now cities all over the province or all over the country are doing the same thing. People are taking it to the streets, and what's happening is it's shifting the winds of public opinion, and it's showing the government in like a physical show that Canadians have had enough. So what I'm hoping to achieve with this is that get people encouraged, tell them they're not alone in their thoughts that what the government's doing is wrong, and have them stand up for themselves.
Absolutely. And it seems that The sentiment is carrying across the country. I know you and I were sort of talking a little bit about what's happening in Alberta right now. There is a massive movement happening in Alberta right now beyond even what's been happening at the Coutts border since Saturday. Have you heard much about what's going on there?
Well, I just get information kind of off social media and from friends of mine that are down there. And what I've heard about the Coutts demonstration is that, the legacy media has done a really good job at being legacy media, in that they haven't really. Just one second, there's some horns going again.
Mm-hmm.
The horns might be going for a bit. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you. It must get loud around there.
It certainly does, yeah. So what I was saying is that the legacy media, the mainstream media, or the media party, as some call it, they've tried to spin both of these demonstrations as something they're not. So they keep calling the Coutts thing a blockade. And I know there's a lot of conflicting information out there, but the information that I'm getting from friends of mine who are down there is that traffic is able to move. And I can't say 100% either way because I'm not there, but like everything I've seen, it's a very positive experience down there. And people are, it's encouraging that people are stepping up in both of these types of demonstrations.
Well, and to speak to that, yes. So in speaking with the organizers in Coutts at the Coutts blockade, they are calling it a blockade, and they do want it to be made known that that their plans are to disrupt traffic in the area. They do want to. They feel like they have needed to make this stand and to make it something that government will feel, like that it will be making a statement. Because, I think a lot of these people are feeling like they're not heard, they're not being heard. And again, I was just having a conversation with one of the fellas that's involved in another blockade that has been set up. Now, this is a blockade just north of Fort Macleod. On Highway 2, right on the Old Man River Bridge, and they've set up there, and they've kind of staggered the vehicles. So it sounds like, again, they are letting traffic through, but very, very slowly. And the sentiment is this is not about being pro vaccine or anti-vaccine. He mentioned that a lot of people who have been participating and that are in these groups that are sort of sharing information and mobilizing on these Telegram groups and social media groups, a lot of the people are vaccinated, have chosen to be vaccinated, but are pro-choice and believe that it should be the right to choose. And so this is really, they want to drive home that this is really about freedom. This is really about the freedom of choice versus being anti-vaccine. So, I just want to clear that up too. But I have heard from Stavely, Grassy Lake, Coaldale. Sounds like they've got stuff happening near Red Deer. I've just heard Brooks is coming on board with a blockade. Now, again, some of them are blockades. Some of them are considered what they call a slow roll, or
right.
a slow roll convoy, which is again meant to disrupt traffic. And really, the goal is to make noise and to be heard, and which is happening in Ottawa as well, with all of the trucks that have come out there and are still waiting outside the city. So give me another, tell me, what have you guys been up to? What do you guys do through the day?
Well, I'm going to comment on what you said first here.
Okay,
And that's a fair assessment. So I did say on our way out here and in the days prior to leaving for Ottawa from Mirror, that yes, this is going to inconvenience people. The people in Ottawa will be inconvenienced by the traffic patterns being disrupted. It's going to be noisy. There's going to be a lot of people. So yes, it is absolutely an inconvenience. And it's the same thing with all the demonstrations happening across the country right now. And so there are people who they're legitimately upset that they're being inconvenienced in their daily lives. And I I cannot stress enough that no matter which side of the fence you're on, it's important to understand that there are people who have been inconvenienced or even worse in the last 2 years by the actions of our government. And these inconveniences are far more impactful than just not being able to drive down a street. I mean, we're talking about people who have lost their businesses, who have lost loved ones, families that were unable to be with their grandparents in their final days because of this. So everybody has been inconvenienced in one way or another in the last 2 years. And at the end of the day, it's a result of poor government policy. So when you're going about your life and you're inconvenienced by one of these things, I would just encourage people to understand why this is happening and why we're dealing with this inconvenience now. It's not something that most of these people want to do. Probably none of them. I mean, and you're right. A lot of the people that are participating in these demonstrations, they are fully vaccinated, even though I don't think that that's a proper term. And they're doing this because they see the inconvenience that's been happening to their friends and their neighbors over the last 2 years, and they're saying it's enough. So that's I just can't stress that enough, that it's not that people are doing this out of spite or anger. It's just that they realize it's time to take it to the streets because we are done with the inconvenience and the divide that we've experienced in this country over the last 2 years.
Yeah, and speaking of the inconvenience, I just interviewed Josh Van Herk. He was somebody that I just spoke with, who is one of the people participating in the blockade just north of Fort Macleod. And he is a truck company owner. So he owns a trucking company and has for 17 years. He said because of the mandates, he's lost 3/4 of his drivers. So
Yeah.
his business is struggling. So again, when we're talking about inconvenience, I think the tough thing is for anyone who's chosen to be vaccinated, I think there may be, and this is not for everyone, because I do know that there are a lot of people participating in these protests, in the blockades, and the rallies, the freedom fighters. I know Josh said he wanted to be called a freedom fighter, not a protester. So Josh, I'll respect that. But a lot of them have chosen to be vaccinated. And so again, this is not about pro or anti-vax. But
Right.
I think that for some people who have chosen to be vaccinated, it's almost like, there's no consequence anymore to them. They have done what they felt was right for themselves or their families. They have made the choice that they've made. It has not impacted their ability to work. It has not impacted their ability to travel. It has not impacted a large portion of their life. Whereas for those who choose to look at it as a freedom of choice, they have, lost businesses, lost jobs, like you said, have not been able to see loved ones, not been able to visit care facilities or hospitals because of their choice to not be vaccinated. So, yeah, when we're talking about how this has affected people's lives, I can understand that these freedom fighters, these protesters, one of the blockade fellas that I spoke with over the weekend was saying, we know this is going to be an inconvenience for people. We completely understand that, but we have to take a stand now. It's kind of that slippery slope where, when we start to lose our rights to choose, what's next, it's the slippery slope. So yeah, go ahead.
And the longer we wait, the harder it becomes. I said, and I'll say it again, if we had stood up last January when the restaurants and gyms and small businesses in Alberta did, and the world was watching, we would very likely not be in this situation right now. At least that's my opinion. So yeah, there comes a time when you have to rip the Band-Aid off, because those that have chosen to follow all the restrictions, all the rules, all the mandates, got their jabs, they still can't participate in society. We still can't go to hockey games. Not fully. Yeah. I mean, hockey, they can't go to hockey games. They got arenas closed. Downtown in Ottawa here, you wouldn't believe how many businesses are shuttered. Like, there's a lot of businesses that went bankrupt because of these restrictions. And those people, they may never get their business back again. And some of those people, they chose to follow the restrictions and mandates that the government set forth. And yet they still suffered. So that's where we're at right now. It's basically, how long do you keep on doing the same thing over and over and over again and experiencing all this collateral damage before you have to look at what's happened and accept that there was a different path, there is a different path, and the quicker we get on that path, the less damage we're going to inflict on Canadians.
We've got some comments coming in here. Excellent job, Chris. Hold the line, boys, says Keela. Another fella, Roy, says, thank you, Chucks, and everyone participating. Frederick says, it's time to kick out Trudeau now. So with this, petition in Ottawa on Parliament Hill, can you speak to the response that we have seen from Trudeau, from our Prime Minister?
Which petition are we referring to?
Well, I mean the petition for the mandates, meaning the whole Freedom Convoy. Petitioning for the mandates to be dropped. So not necessarily a circulating petition, but I just mean what the goal is of the Freedom Convoy. Can you speak to our Prime Minister's response?
So it's basically fallen on deaf ears. And what's happened after that is the mainstream media, the legacy media, has failed to do their jobs with journalistic integrity, and they're not telling both sides of the story. And they're acting as, in my opinion, they're acting as a propaganda arm to the federal government. So when we see stuff in the news about this in the mainstream news, it doesn't reflect the how monumental this is, the fact that it's unified Canadians and encourage people to actually have dialogue about this. It's more about, almost everything I've seen ends with, and just get your vaccine. So it's really fallen on deaf ears, and the only media that bothers to try and tell both sides of the story are the independents. So I guess I'll say thank you to the Western Standard, because you guys do a very good job of that. And as a matter of fact, I'm sure you already know that I have a small relationship with the Western Standard, where they've offered my viewers a 3-month free subscription by subscribing at Friends of the Whistle Stop. So that's amazing. And it's important, because if the media had been doing their jobs and telling both sides of the story, we would be in a different spot right now. We really would. And the fact that our Prime Minister, instead of acknowledging the fact that Canadians are unified in their desire to get rid of these mandates, he's focusing on a single flag that I didn't see personally, by the way, or a couple incidents of people possibly doing things that they didn't really understand, that they had a bad public perception. He focuses on those, and he calls the group of people here racists and xenophobes, and he says that their opinions, misogynist, and that their opinions aren't, what did he say? Oh, I try and scrub that stuff out of my mind.
They're not acceptable.
Their opinions are unacceptable.
Yeah.
A fringe minority. And since when in Canada has it ever been acceptable to tell a minority group, no matter what the group is, that their views and opinions are unacceptable? That is the most un-Canadian thing I've ever heard. So I don't believe this is about petitioning the Trudeau government to drop the mandates. I believe that this is about continuing to build on this momentum and igniting and uniting more Canadians to stand up and say, we've had enough. Those that feel like maybe they'll be persecuted for their views, they need to get visible, and they need to be heard, because the only way this changes is if the government's perception of the public shifts. And as you've seen in the past, the Liberal government, it doesn't matter what the situation is or what the issue is, they will flip-flop. They'll go from the sky is blue one day to the sky is green the next day if they think that that's what the public wants to hear. So this is about getting loud. And speaking of loud.
And speaking of loud.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when I decided I was going to get behind this convoy and join them and drive a truck out here to Ottawa, that was the aha moment for me. For 2 years, Canadians have been waiting for something to get behind, for something to pave the way so that they can stand up and speak their minds and know that there are millions of people standing with them. And this is that moment. So I don't believe that there's been so much information and so many groups trying to say, oh, we're going to, we're going to get rid of the government. We're going to overthrow the government by everybody signing this piece of paper. It doesn't work like that. That's not how Canada works. It never has. Petitions rarely make any difference. They potentially allow your MP or your MLA to speak on an issue for a certain period of time in the House. That's what a petition does. And that's a government thing. This is a people thing. And at the end of the day, people have all the power, and things like this are bringing it to light to those that don't know that. So that's what this is about. It's the power of the people, not the power of a petition.
It is. I've got a comment here from somebody saying that the Coots truckers have negotiated, and I don't know if you've heard of this, and we're still waiting to have full confirmation of this, but Coots truckers negotiating with 30 MLAs to drop the mandates and restrictions here. Looks like the MLAs are going to be meeting with government officials today. So we're obviously going to sort of keep our eyes and ears on that and update people as quickly as we can. Lots of response here from people, just really thanking truckers, thanking you, Chris, for being out there, for stepping up. So well said. Someone says, thank you. Let Chris talk instead. So, hey, I'm happy to let Chris talk. So, Chris, you had mentioned that where you're parked, where you're staying there, you're about a 5-minute walk, you said, from Parliament Hill. And things hopefully aren't minus 30 still there.
It's a beautiful day. I think it's like 0 or something. Oh, it's +4. Wow. Okay. Yeah, it's quite warm.
Now we've got a lawyer. I'm just going to make sure. Do we have Chad? We don't have Chad right now. Okay, so we were going to touch base with the lawyer. So I thought maybe I would coordinate it where you walk over to Parliament Hill. Are you interested in going for a walk and just showing us the sights of what you're seeing?
Yeah,
nearby you.
I probably should go for a walk because people have been bringing us donuts for days, and it's important to go for walks.
So having said that, I know I've seen a lot of mainstream media reporting that people in Ottawa are fed up. The sentiment that you're getting and hearing and the response that you're seeing from people seems a bit different.
Well, okay, so it would be completely disingenuous to say that everybody in Ottawa is supportive of this. Mm-hmm. You can't by any measure say that this type of thing would make everybody in a city happy. It absolutely won't. And as a matter of fact, there's a Starbucks where I'm parked, and I went in there to grab a coffee, and I said to the young lady behind the counter, I said, hey, sorry about all the noise. Or what do you think of all this? And she said, well, we haven't been able to work in 2 days because of this. And she was cranky. She was visibly upset. And I get it. There's horns blaring. There's trucks in the streets. There's a lot of people. It really is. People get upset with that. I totally understand. And I didn't say anything at the time, but I really wish I had mentioned, I'm sorry that you haven't been able to work for a couple of days, but I haven't been able to operate my restaurant for almost 2 years, at least in the capacity that it needs to operate in order to stay in business. And that's what this is all about. There are people in this town that are angry. The mayor he does not like us at all. The police are very friendly. And yeah, the reception for this isn't all positive, for sure. But I said this before, people don't get involved in things generally unless it affects them personally. And now this is affecting a lot more people than it did in the past. And at the very least, it's opened up dialogue, like the opportunity I had to speak to the young lady, and it was a missed opportunity, but I won't make that mistake again. It's opened up that dialogue so we can start saying, hey, I'm really sorry that you're being inconvenienced by what's happening here, but this is why we're doing it. And this is the inconveniences we've seen. So please, when you're getting frustrated and angry because you're hearing horns, please remember that there are people out there who have literally lost loved ones, lost careers, lost the opportunity to play in the NHL, Like the list goes on and on and on. So yes, there are people in Ottawa who 100% are upset with this, and I get it. But we have to look at that as an opportunity to have conversations with people.
Did you, by any chance, get a chance to see the Tucker Carlson rant that he did for about 17 minutes? Not last night, but the night before.
Was it about Justin Trudeau?
Mm-hmm.
I caught a little bit of it, and then my phone started ringing, and it didn't quit till I fell asleep. But yeah, that's important. That there are people like Tucker Carlson, and there's actually a lot of them in the States that have watched what the leader of our country is doing, how he's talking about his countrymen and women, and they think it's disgusting, and they are hammering on him, as they should, because even our brothers and sisters to the south, they've been going through the same things, but I don't think they've really been subject to a leader that's treated them quite that bad.
Yeah, I think the sentiment there is that that there is, especially with the leader of a nation as large and prominent as Canada, that you would have some diplomacy, especially in your language. So I think, and I'm not sure if you had a chance to see the interview that I did with Justin Trudeau's half brother, Kyle Kemper, who basically agreed and said the same thing. This is sort of a really awful way to be speaking as a leader of a nation when you are talking about your own citizens, when you're and when you're talking about some of the verbiage that has been used to describe some of the protests and some of the activity that's been happening in Ottawa. I mean, the footage that I've watched and the pictures and the video show, you can see Canadian flags for miles, and the one-off flag of a Confederate flag or a Nazi flag. I mean, I'm sure. Have you seen very many of those types of flags flying there? Because what seems interesting to me is the hyper focus that comes of that one-off sort of bad seed or the handful of bad seeds that perhaps show up in poor taste, but to label the entire movement and everybody that's there on Parliament Hill as being of like mind with somebody who would carry a flag with the Nazi symbol on it it just seems so far-fetched.
Well, let's compare this to something else. So I guess and this brings up another point. In order for the Liberal government to paint this entire movement with that brush because somebody brought a hate symbol into the mix, which I didn't see it. I haven't seen a Confederate flag. I haven't seen any swastikas or any hate symbols at all. There is one flag that I've seen a lot of, and I don't understand what it means. It's a black flag, and it says F Maple Leaf CK Trudeau, but I don't get it. Like, it's not even a word. I don't know, maybe somebody will explain it to me. But other than that, I haven't seen any derogatory flags. And if the Liberal government's going to use those examples to paint everybody here as racists and xenophobes, and keeping in mind that there are people of all races, backgrounds, colors, genders, political stances here, it's not just one race, then they have to basically call the entire Liberal Party racists, because their leader, Justin Trudeau, on multiple occasions has presented himself in blackface. And that is a horrendously racist thing to do. Maybe, 20 or 30 years ago, it may have been kind of, there you go. It may have been, just a comical thing and nobody really was offended by it, but that has changed. And it's the same thing with the Confederate flag. At one point, that flag was used to represent a certain ideology that didn't really have anything to do with racism. But the image was hijacked by a group that held values that differ from ours, and in which they're not inclusive and they don't like other races. So now we're in a position where we have to be very careful on what symbols we use because they've been associated with that. So it could have possibly been just somebody who likes the flag and didn't intend it to be a racist symbol. However, yes, in things like this, it's important to use proper judgment and make sure that we're not presenting the wrong image, just like our Prime Minister. And I want to point out that Arnold Viersen, the MP for Peace River, for Peace River in Alberta, he raised a motion in the House. I think it was this morning, and the motion was, will the House condemn the use of blackface? And why not? It's a horrendously racist thing to do. We don't want to see people running around in blackface. It's a very poor image it doesn't scream acceptance and inclusiveness. And the entire Liberal caucus voted no. They refused to condemn blackface. And now that really drives home my point. The Trudeau government, the Liberal government, does not push policy or bring in laws with anything to do with ethics or morality or doing what's right. They do what they think is going to make them win. And they know if they pass that motion condemning blackface, it would cause them problems because their own leader has participated in those actions. So, and it's the same with the COVID restrictions. They're not doing this because they believe it's an ethical or a moral or a right thing to do. They're doing it because they believe that it's what they need to do to win. And I had a conversation with Mr. Viersen, and I told him the message that I'd like to get into the House is that our MPs, they better stop worrying about chasing the polls and chasing votes, and they better start standing up and doing what's right, regardless of whether or not people get upset with them, because we remember that. And we are going to remember that when everything to do with COVID's done. We're going to look back and we're going to remember the men and women who stood up and did what's right, because when these court challenges get through, when the Supreme Court is done with all this stuff, the truth is going to come out that what's happened was unethical, immoral, and it caused more harm than good. And it had nothing to do with benefiting the people of Canada. So now is the time for those MPs, and I'm not talking about just Conservative or Liberal or Bloc or NDP. I'm talking about all of them as individuals standing up for what's right and doing the right thing, because we're going to remember it.
You know, Chris, interesting, talking about the symbolism, some of the symbolism that has been used, and I think a lot of people would agree that, using a Nazi flag as the symbol, even just the symbol, or the Confederate flag is in poor taste. I don't deny that at all. A lot of people, but the way it's been perceived, I had a conversation with a group of people very recently, and we were talking about this. We were saying, why would somebody come to something like this talking about freedom and bring a Nazi flag? And this is all hypothesis, but I would think that what they are displaying by bringing a Nazi flag, which I don't agree with, I'll go on the record right now, I don't agree with carrying that in any way to get a point across. But I feel like our hypothesis was that perhaps that the display is showing what they feel our country is becoming, the path. And I get it. Again, a lot of people have been very offended by that, because when you're comparing what Canadians are facing right now to what happened in Nazi Germany with the Jews, there's no comparison. And for the record, I agree with that as well. I would never want to compare the two. But I feel like the sentiment is people are saying we are becoming this fascist, communist place, and our rights are being eroded, as was witnessed in those times. And so, the display of a Nazi flag is not, and again, hypothesis, but it was not necessarily, an attack on Canada or supporting of Nazi ideology or movement. It was more so to symbolize where they feel that our country is going. So I understand that. Again, I don't feel that it's a great comparison, and I also feel like it is very disrespectful. But that, I think, is the sentiment. People really are feeling like we are sliding down a slippery slope, as we were talking about earlier. So I just wanted to mention that I've had conversations around with many people, and I've heard similar feelings from a lot of people.
Well, that could be it. It absolutely could be. I and the other potential. It could also be somebody brought that in here to make this look like that. I don't
Sure,
know.
and to be
I didn't see him.
antagonistic,
Yes,
absolutely.
it's entirely possible, and it's plausible and it's probable, but I don't know for sure. I wish I had seen that, because if I had seen that, I would have approached that person and had a conversation with them and asked them, and
Likewise.
I would have given them my opinion that that was in poor taste, and I would have probably more used words like, you know what, that's really stupid. You shouldn't be doing that, because no matter what you think of that, what you're showing other people has the potential to derail an otherwise
Mm,
genuine movement, right? And
exactly.
there, this is not what happened in Nazi Germany to the Jews, and actually not just the Jews, other races as well, was horrendous. And this is not that,
No.
but there are a lot of parallels, and the parallels are more in the structure and the mechanisms that were used to accomplish those heinous acts. And the mechanisms were a leader who rallied a country by using the media and forcing, not forcing, but convincing the people of the country to fight amongst each other by segregating them, telling them it was okay to bully their neighbors, and basically swaying the public's opinion to pit them against another group, a minority group. And no, this isn't like that, as in the government's not rounding up people in rail cars and sending them to their death. But the government is absolutely using the media to make people fight amongst each other. And I
Mm,
really believe that part of the reason for that is uh, it's become quite apparent over the last few months that our healthcare system has been mismanaged. Like, it's horrible. The mismanagement that's happened, and this is not just an Alberta thing; it is a countrywide thing. You look at the stats for the Ontario Health and from the Ontario Health Authority, and it shows that their hospitals have been overwhelmed at numerous times throughout the last 30 years. It happens because the government has failed to keep those providing health services accountable. And now we're in a position where those organizations or the government has to either acknowledge that they've failed to exercise proper oversight on these organizations providing healthcare, and that's what this problem is, or they convince people that it's a minority group's fault, and they let society bully those people and blame them for it. And you can see that in some of Premier Kenny's words that he uses, like a problem of the unvaccinated, or, you'll get your rights back if the unvaccinated just get vaccinated. Those things cause division, and they cause people to fight. And it takes the spotlight off the government's failings and off the health services providers' failings. And if we can see what they're doing and continue to focus on what the real problem is, we will be in a way, way better place, because Canadians are starting to wake up to the fact that the government is using the media, the ones that are eating at the trough of the Canadian Media Fund. They're using them to promote their ideology and agenda, and they've had enough. And you see that in independent media subscriptions like the Western Standard and Rebel Media and Todayville and what's the Epoch Times, like
Epoch, yeah.
their subscriptions are going through the roof because Canadians are not stupid, and they know what's being done to them. They're paying attention to history, and they're not going to let history repeat itself. So
Well,
I don't even
it's
remember what
interesting
the
you
question
bring.
was, but
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you bring that up too when we're talking about how the spin or how the media has been covering this. There's been, I mean, I'm sure you've heard. I believe it was yesterday, Jason Kenney came forward with a statement, a public statement saying that police officers or RCMP officers at the blockade had been assaulted, and that there was he didn't go into detail, but there was some sort of a ramming incident that that led to an accident. And however, what has become known to us and has been admitted by the RCMP is that there was no assault. There was no assault on any officers. Now, the RCMP, to this point, I haven't seen yet, the RCMP have not come out with a statement kind of refuting what the Premier has said, which to me is, it's sort of shocking, because I feel like in any other circumstance, if the RCMP was identified as being involved in something that wasn't factual, I feel like there would have been a statement released. However, nothing's been released. So that's got a lot of people frustrated. I have had so many people emailing me saying, what's the situation with this? Did this really happen? Were people assaulted? There was no assault on RCMP officers by anyone from the blockade, from anyone in Coutts. And that, and so I think Kenney is going to need to make a public retraction of that, because let's be honest, the statement of I have to say, the statement of accusing anyone of attacking our authorities, a police officer, an RCMP officer, whichever, that is a huge allegation, and that needs to be retracted if it's become known that that is not what happened. Now, who knows? Perhaps Kenney was given some faulty information, and if that's the case, that's fine. But I think we need to be hearing from it, and it needs to be as public of a retraction as it was an announcement claiming that there was, that there was an assault against RCMP officers.
Well, that doesn't happen with Premier Kenney. And if there's one thing I've learned about that man, is that he lies. He's lied to us numerous times, and so has his, the chief medical officer of health. Those involved in his close circles, they have lied to us on numerous occasions. We've caught them in that. The Western Standard has done a great job of keeping them accountable to the people. And what I've seen after that happening is it's very few times where he actually issues a retraction. He's said things about me, not using my name, but using people, the groups that I'm in, and he's accused us of doing things like being super spreaders. Now, there is zero evidence to support that. I've never had any issues in all of the things that we've done at the Whistle Stop Cafe, and we've had, believe it or not, thousands and thousands and thousands of people through that little cafe in weekends. He's lied about numerous things. The chief medical officer of health lied about a 14-year-old boy dying of COVID. They lied about an infant dying of COVID. And these lies just keep piling up and piling up and piling up. So when I hear Jason Kenney speak now, if he says he's going to do one thing, I know he's going to do the other. And if he's saying that there was an assault on RCMP, I know that there wasn't an assault on RCMP, because it's going to come out in a week or two that didn't happen. And another thing that's important to remember is that these demonstrations, everybody has a cell phone, and everything's being recorded from every angle for every minute of every day. I walk down the street and I do a live stream, and it's nothing but a sea of people doing live streams in front of me. So if something like that did happen, there will be evidence. There would be evidence of it. There'll be video evidence, no question. But why would he do that? Why would he say that these violent acts are happening and it's a bad natured protest? Because he doesn't like it. He doesn't like these protests and these demonstrations because it's making his government look terrible. I've made his government look terrible, and I'm just some guy that has a cafe. But I ended up going to jail because I protested, and I got sentenced. I got big fines. I had a compelled speech thing. They tried to say I couldn't leave Alberta, and I'm on probation. And the judge told me that I needed to follow the science. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start following the science. So I've interviewed people like Dr. Peter McCullough. I've interviewed Dr. Roger Hodkinson. I've interviewed the Honorable Brian Peckford. I've gone right to the horse's mouth to get the information that we need to make proper decisions. But our government hasn't done that. Our government is just pushing the same agenda they have over and over and over again, and trying to force us to do things that have failed in the past over and over and over again without actually following the science. So the silver lining to this is that people like me have been put in a position where we have to go find that information for ourselves. And when we do, I think about what our premier has said and what our health authority has said, and it doesn't fit. So either they are terribly misinformed, and whatever experts they're talking to shouldn't have their jobs, or they're lying. And either way, it's a terrible, terrible thing to have rampant in your government, especially when they're trying to tell you that you have to do something to your body that other doctors are speaking out against in order to be a full member of society.
Chris, Cheryl has a comment here. Chris, I loved your idea from the other night about only honking and making noise from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for Ottawa area residents. So maybe we can take a moment to just remind even some of the truckers in the convoys, anyone in the blockades, people in Ottawa that are watching. Yeah, these poor area residents do need to live through this as well. So, you know, your suggestion was just to kind of keep the honking during the day, correct?
Yeah, and that's my suggestion. I do need to point out that I'm not an organizer. I don't have any authority over anybody here. I'm not a leader or anything like that. So these are just my suggestions because I'm trying to navigate this just like everybody else. And I see a path that we need to take to achieve our goal. And part of the path, in my opinion, is that we need to keep as many friends as we can. We don't want to make enemies out of people who may be sympathetic to our cause, but become our enemies because of honking. I mean, we're here.
Mm-hmm.
People
That's
know
right.
we're here, and we're making noise and we're very visible. So that's my suggestion, and I'm certainly not gonna. I'm not gonna tell people what to do, but that's what I'm doing. That's what I can do myself personally to try and reduce the impact on those around me.
Susan says, full steam ahead, Chris. Thank you. I have another comment here. Could someone put a human rights complaint against Trudeau for hate speech? I wanted to mention this one from Clive because I have seen numerous comments from our viewers right now that are saying the same thing. How is this not being considered hate speech? How is he not up on hate speech? I mean, these are public statements being said, as you said, to a minority. So
and the Premier Kenney has done the same things. Like, they're both guilty of the same thing. And I don't mean guilty as in we've gone through court and they've been pronounced guilty, but public opinion, public perception has them guilty of some type of hate speech. And you said full steam ahead. So my organization, wsfullsteamahead.org, we really, really want to do something that even if tomorrow the mandates are lifted, there's still the potential for it to happen again, right? It's not a one and done. So we've decided that we want to build our membership and become a voice powerful enough that we can actually influence policy and educate people as to why certain policies are great and why others are dangerous to Albertans or Canadians. In addition, we also originally wanted to help people who were getting fired because of the mandate to file a claim against their employer and get them into court so that they could get some sort of remedy. And we realized after we had floods of emails, there are thousands upon thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of people in Canada who are affected by that mandate. So we sat down as a board and we discussed this, and we came to the conclusion that we're not going to actually do that. What we're going to do is we are going to file a claim against the PMO and any of these other government officials who are responsible for implementing these measures without proper justification, without the science to back it up. And we are going to open this claim up to every person in Canada who has been affected by these mandates. So basically what we're saying is, yes, there are 100% human rights violations. There's charter violations. There's all sorts of things that have been pushed on Canadians that should have never happened. And we want to open this up to not only the individuals who have been fired from their employers, but also those employers who have been forced to implement those mandates. Because at the end of the day, I don't think any of these, I'm going to change that. Very few of the employers or big companies that have implemented those mandates want to do that, because the number one resource that we have in Canada, the most valuable resource we have, is labor. And when you put a mandate like that in, you shoot yourself in the foot, and you're killing you're taking away from your labor pool. So if you let's take a federal carrier that had to implement a vax mandate because the Trudeau government said You're federally regulated. Everybody has to be vaccinated. Now they're forced to fire some workers. They're forced to tell their contractors they have to fire workers if they're not vaccinated. All of those people have been victimized by a government that implemented mandates without justification, and they'll all be plaintiffs in this. So that's what we want to do. And I'm glad you brought up that human rights thing, because in the last, well, as long as I've been alive, human rights issues have always been paramount in Canada. And it's because Canada is accepting, inclusive, and we don't like that kind of segregation and division. So yes, absolutely 100%. There are people like me and organizations like mine who are working on that stuff, but it is not a quick fix. I mean, we're talking Supreme Court stuff, right? And when you look at Supreme Court matters, it's years, 5 years, 6 years, 7, 10 years. It's a long time. So in the meantime, movements like this that unite Canadians to stand up for their rights and tell the government that no, we're not going to submit to these divisive and uninclusive policies. This is what is important to help right now at this minute.
Well, I've got Jade who's made a comment here. If these mandates stay, then they will mandate things like euthanasia, sterilization. They will mandate every new vaccine. It will never end. So it's time to say no. Now, Chris, I have a suggestion if you're willing. What are your thoughts on perhaps you walking down to the Parliament buildings and just, being able to give us a view of what's going on down there right now. And then I'm just going to do a quick check-in while you're walking down there. And we're going to find out, check in with our reporter James down in Coutts and just and see if there's anything happening there. And then you can just relink in with us once you get to the Parliament buildings, and we can have a live look at what things are looking like in Ottawa right now. How's that?
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure. I'm actually looking forward to going down there and seeing what's going on, because there is literally people dancing in the streets for the last few days here. It's amazing.
Well, we would like to see that. So yeah, if you're open to that, you can disconnect with us now. Once you get down there, just click the link back and we'll jump back in with you. Okay?
Sure. Yeah.
That would be awesome. Thanks so much for speaking with us. We've had a lot of people just sending their well wishes to you, their prayers to you, and thanking you for what you're doing there, Chris, and what you've been doing throughout the entire pandemic, standing up for choice and for freedom. So a lot of thank yous here from the viewers. So thanks again. We'll talk to you in a few.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like we have got James Finkbeiner on sort of standby right now, and we're going to check in with James and just see how things are going. Now, last I heard, James, sorry if you've been waiting for a bit, is it still really cold down there? Is it warming up at all?
It is absolutely terrible. The wind has picked up. It is probably the coldest it's been. The temperature is a little bit warmer, but the wind is just awful right now.
So it looks like you're at the blockade, and is it what's going on right now? I know that the lawyers are there. They were going to speak with us, but they've gone into a meeting. What's happening right now?
Yeah, so the lawyers are still keeping communication open between the protesters, and right behind me here is actually where the main stoppage was. This was where the original blockade happened. I'm going to flip my camera around and show you guys around a little bit here. Sorry, just bear with me.
Mm-hmm.
So right here, this is where the main blockade was originally taking place. And as you can see, most of the vehicles have cleared out of here. Over the last couple of hours, everybody's kind of hopped back into their units. They've started moving stuff out. There's an open lane now in both directions. They're still kind of shifting vehicles around, but there's a lot of moving parts. This RCMP vehicle and this black truck here actually just had a bit of a fender bender. I don't think they could see around one of the trucks. So, I mean, that's just one of the things, right? It's part of a situation when you have the highway blocked like that, things are dangerous and accidents can happen. And I think that's part of what happened today. Is I think people started to realize that after after 5 days, and the amount of people here, the amount of equipment, the amount of driving, that things can't stay safe forever. And part of the community came in, some of the locals, and said to the truck drivers, they said, if we keep this up, things are going to get dangerous. Somebody's going to get hurt. We don't want anybody to get hurt. What we want here is a peaceful protest. We want our government to listen to us, and they're starting to listen to us.
So that I'm clear, I understand that they've opened up a lane, but nobody has left. Is that right? Like they've just sort of cleared the opportunity for people to get through more now, one lane in each direction, but nobody is planning to leave until we see where things go with speaking with the MLAs. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So all of the trucks have pulled over to the shoulder. They've left one lane open. They'll pull over further. They just want to see what the MLAs come back with. So they're in communication with some of the MLAs. They're just waiting for an update. What they've said is that if the MLAs either don't come back to them or don't open a dialogue with them, that they can shut this highway back down again within a matter of minutes.
And so are the lawyers participating in the chat with the MLAs? Did I understand that the MLAs are actually coming down to Coutts border, or what?
It was originally said that some of the MLAs were coming down. Obviously, they want to remain anonymous right now while they work things behind the scene. There's actually some area town councilors here as well. They've asked to remain anonymous just while they're helping facilitate discussions. There's some of the original Farmers for Justice people here that are helping with negotiations between the truckers, the MLAs, reaching out to their contacts from over the years. You're in a fairly politically active area. You've got a lot of politically active farmers, and they're all working the phones right now. They're all coming up with a solution. I think everybody here has kind of got one goal in mind. They want the Kenney government and the Trudeau government to listen to them, to take their concerns to heart, and I think everybody's starting to realize that ultimatums just aren't going to work from either side, and I think we're going to see some more progress here today.
I'm sure you've heard, we put a story out on it just a little while ago. There are numerous, they're calling them sort of pop-up slow roll convoys, numerous pop-up blockades that are happening and just spreading across Alberta right now. I spoke with a couple of people, one a municipal councillor who did not want to share his name, referencing how much flack the Grant Hunter has received from making his stand. So I won't mention his name, but he is part of quite a few of the Facebook groups, the Telegram groups, some of these trucker groups and freedom convoy groups. And apparently they have got all sorts of things popping up. Grassy Lake has looks like, I don't have all the details whether in that area it's more of a slow roll, which means the vehicles are just taking up the lanes and they're moving slowly, so traffic kind of gets stuck behind them, or an official blockade. So I don't know exactly what's happening at each location, but I do know that near Grassy Lake, Highway number 3, they've got something rolling there. Highway number 2 at Fort Macleod. I spoke with Josh Van Herk, who was set up there with, he said, about 30 other vehicles, from semis to farm equipment to trucks and vehicles and SUVs and whatnot. So they've kind of done a staggered situation right near the Old Man River Bridge, just north of Fort Macleod. And so they're doing a staggered situation on the highway. So, it slows down traffic considerably. Again, they're standing in solidarity. What Josh said was they are going to sit there as long as it takes. And they said they're trying to take the heat off of the fellow truckers at Coutts. One of the things Josh was really frustrated with was some of the misinformation that's been spread, including Jason Kenney announcing that RCMP officers had been assaulted. just some of the bad press that's been put out, that, he says in an effort to try to turn people away from understanding the stand that these protesters and these truckers are trying to make. Sounds like they're also setting up something in Stavely. There's something near Red Deer. I heard Brooks, something's going on there. They've got something on Highway 3 near Pincher Creek. Sounds like I even heard over near Coaldale and Nobleford. There is stuff happening everywhere in Alberta right now. And I'm hearing from some of these groups that this is going to be the case for quite some time. Josh says, we're not going to quit. He said, some of us are fighting for our livelihoods. We are not going to give up until we see, some relief from these mandates.
Yeah, so that's what we're hearing too. A lot of those groups are in communication with this group, and they're saying that they're going to continue slow rolling down the highway, keeping their rolling convoys going to ensure that the MLAs continue to meet, to ensure that the dialogue stays open. And it's the same thing. These guys here, they lose their livelihood with this vaccine mandate. They can't work. They can't feed their family. They have wives. They have children. They're desperate, and they're showing today that they're willing to make some concessions. They're willing to say, hey, you know what? We don't deal in absolutes like you guys do, and they're saying let's make some progress. Let's discuss what's happening. Let's discuss how we can make this change so that everybody can get back to work, so that everybody can take care of themselves.
James, one of the questions I had was, and I have to assume by the fact that they are opening up some lanes right now, are they getting the supplies they need now? Are they getting the food, the gas, the fuel, everything that they needed for the blockade?
Yeah, earlier this morning, the RCMP actually let the Village of Coutts get a fuel truck in. Now, that fuel truck that came in is for the Village of Coutts. That truck will not be going around filling up the trucks. However, it does sound like a shipment of propane did get in, so some of the heaters now have fuel for them. They're kind of negotiating how they can get diesel into some of these trucks. They're going to work on that. We've heard that there is a couple of trucks coming down from the Red Deer area with food, groceries, and meals for these guys. So some stuff is getting in. Now, the RCMP still does have the area cordoned off. They're still only letting locals in, and they're basically saying if you're here as a protester and you're cold, you're tired, you're running low on fuel, you're welcome to leave at any time, but you can't come back. So that's why a lot of these guys, they're still hunkered in. They've made good on their word. They've opened up the lanes. Vehicles are able to get in and out of here in the left-hand lane now, no problem. But the RCMP still haven't opened up the area to traffic.
And again, this is, there has never been, as far as I understand, there has never been a cutoff or the stoppage of any emergency vehicles in and out of the area. So safety was also a concern, as I understand it, from organizers at the blockade all along.
Yeah, that's right, Mel. They had always planned to make sure emergency vehicles could get in. They let the mayor of Coutts know that they would be here. They let the mayor know that they would leave access for area residents, and they did. And I mean, I've been able to work my way in and out of this area absolutely no problem for the last 5 days. It takes a little bit of navigation. It takes a little bit of time, but you can get in and out. And I understand that in an emergency, seconds matter, and you don't want to have an ambulance impeded. And they've all been more than willing to move absolutely everything out of the way to get everything in and out of here.
A lot of thank yous, even thank you to you, James, for braving the cold. I don't know if you need to go sit somewhere warm, but have you had a chance to speak with many of the locals?
I have, actually. I had coffee with a bunch of locals earlier this morning, and that's where a lot of the discussions about getting the lanes open. Some of the locals basically said, hey guys, you know what, we really support what you're doing here. We believe in what you're doing here, but we need a lane open. We need a lane open in every direction. You know, our kids got to go to school. We got to get in and out. Our residents are being, you know, they got to show their IDs. They got to say where they live. They got to say where they work to get in and out of their homes. And they basically said, you know, we're reaching that point where you're going to overstay your welcome. So let's show some good faith. Let's get some real discussions going, and the locals help drive those conversations. And you know, the locals have been helping them get supplies in. I know I showed earlier a video of some of the protesters actually using toboggans and wagons to cross over a field to get fuel and food in here.
Sorry, James, that last sentence to get, I didn't quite catch that. The last sentence was to get fuel in there?
Yeah, to get fuel and food in here. I'm just going to hop back inside.
Yeah, I was going to suggest.
It's unbelievably, the wind here is just cold. And, you know, that's part of it. That's part of what happened and what was going on. Is just the temperature and the wind is, it's low, it's cold. It's the wind chill is just crazy today. The blowing snow is just, it goes right through you. And that was part of it. The locals and the protesters knew that someone was going to get hurt. You know, you're running low on fuel, somebody's going to freeze. And nobody wants to see anybody hurt. Nobody wanted to see any violence. Nobody wanted to see aggression. They just wanted to be heard.
That's right. Now, I spoke with one of the RCMP officers on site there this morning, who again did confirm there was the allegation that some RCMP officers or law enforcement officers had been assaulted. Again, just want to take that time to say that was actually not the case. There was no assault on any law enforcement officer by anyone. We're waiting for, we have received a statement from Jason Kenney, but no real retraction. Also was hoping to see, and sorry, I haven't had a chance to check the Twitter feed from RCMP, but we were thinking that we would have seen the RCMP come forward and speak out against that. And you had even confirmed with me this morning, you spent a lot of time trying to get to the bottom of what assault happened, and nobody could reference any assault.
No, that's right. We have asked everyone, the protesters, actually after Jason Kenney's press conference, the protesters began asking amongst themselves who assaulted who, what had happened. If the protesters would have found who assaulted the police, they would have turned that person over to the police themselves. These are not violent people. These are very respectful, very prayerful people. They are family men. They are just concerned about the future for themselves and the futures for their families.
That's right, and I've spoken with a number of people that are involved in the blockade at Coutts, as well as a lot of people who are doing these sort of pop-up blockades that are happening in and around Alberta, small towns down south, even coming up as high, I've heard, as Red Deer. I think we're probably going to. Have they been talking about some of these down at Coutts, James?
Yeah, definitely. It appears that that through social media, all of these groups are, I wouldn't say that they're coordinating with each other, but they're talking to each other and they're supporting each other. And people that couldn't make it down here to this protest area have taken up protest areas across the province. And they're all showing support. And they've all said, you guys have opened up a lane. Good for you. We're going to keep rolling. We're going to make sure that the MLAs meet. We're going to make sure that they have those discussions, and we're going to support you guys in what you guys are doing down there.
Okay, just checking. Have we connected with Chris again? Okay. So James, if you want to hold on, or I can touch back with you, or do you have anything else that you want to update us on right now, or maybe we can connect with you in a bit when you can again get us in touch with or have a conversation with Chad Williamson, which is one of the lawyers that the group has brought down, who sounds like he's in a meeting right now.
Yeah, so we were lucky. We got a quick window there with Mr. Williamson. Unfortunately, he had another meeting, and then he had another interview, and then just like most of us here, he needed to get a bite to eat. It's been a really busy day. Everybody's been going nonstop. So I'm hoping that I can catch up with him later on today and get a few words in with him. But for now, I am going to go warm up. It
Yes.
looks like the trucks are mostly clearing that lane open now. And I'll follow up later with some more video after I see what else is going on here in a couple hours.
Okay, sounds good, and we'll keep our again our eyes and ears on what's happening with these discussions with the MLAs as soon as we get word.
Awesome.
Thanks,
a lot, Mel.
James. Okay, go
Thanks,
warm
Mel.
up. All right, so it sounds like we have Chris again. Chris Scott was joining us earlier, in case you missed it. Owner of Whistle Stop Cafe and freedom fighter, and sounds like he is down in Ottawa. He was parked in a truck and chatted with us for a while. Chris, it sounds like you are now walking the Parliament and showing us what's happening down there. Yeah, that sounds loud. Can you even hear me? There's a lot of people there. So this is Chris Scott live at the Parliament buildings. Chris, can you hear me at all? I'm guessing that's a no. So we've asked Chris to head down to the Parliament buildings and just show us what's happening there. Show us what's happening on Parliament Hill, and here we are. A lot of Canadian flags you can see. There are the trucks. There's the Parliament. And of course, it is 5:30 in Ottawa right now, so the sun's starting to set. Wow. I would imagine earplugs would probably be a much needed essential visiting the convoy. A lot of families, a lot of children. A lot of messages there from Canadians. Right in front of the Parliament. Stand your ground. That's incredible. I really think that this, this has been a real unifier for our country and for Canadians alike. Lots of comments too from people who are watching right now. A lot of people calling out our Prime Minister right now, Justin Trudeau, for the hate speech. And Jade says no one should lose their job if they don't want a jab. It's criminal. You probably can't hear me, Chris, but Heidi says you are awesome and you speak the truth. Barb says, yes, Chris, you are right. Keep spreading good common sense and truth.
That was so great. So great. Thank you. That was amazing. That said the unifying message. And I like how you pointed out the guy protesting and how you said, like,
we're actually live with the Western Standard in Alberta right now.
oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Let's say hello, Chris. Yeah.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't know what to say.
Someone's a little shy. Chris, just I don't know if you can hear me, but just getting a lot of great comments about what you're doing there. Thanking
So
you.
obviously, I can't hear anything anyone's saying, but
Okay.
you get the picture.
Yeah. Donnie says, Chris, you are such a great speaker.
Wow, that was loud.
Can you hear me at all, Chris? I'm guessing not. Just a lot going down. This is the Parliament in Ottawa, and we are speaking with Chris Scott right now from the Whistle Stop Cafe, who jumped in a big truck and drove across the country to join many other Canadians protesting the mandates and asking for the government to take them down. And you can see that it's not a small fringe minority. And it's not.
I'm gonna walk down that way.
Yeah, it clearly is not, a bunch of radicalists. I mean, we've been seeing families down there. We've been seeing children down there.
Well, we'll walk that way then.
People who really just want their freedoms back.
So we're walking away from the noise on our way back to the truck to meet with Mr. Scheer.
Oh, you're meeting with Andrew Scheer right now?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that'll be an interesting conversation, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Very good. You know what? Before I wrap up with you, Chris, if I could, I had one comment that I read here from Linda. She says, go home. It's time for this to leave. What do you say to people who say, you know, you've said your piece, time to go home? What do you have to say?
Well, I guess I'd say I understand what you're saying and your frustration that this is continuing, but you know, there's a lot of men and women here who are very committed to seeing this through and to encouraging the rest of Canada to stand up and demand that their government release everybody from these restrictions. And it's not just unvaccinated folks or vaccinated or people that wear masks or don't. They really are doing this because they want everybody to be free of this, and they want to get to a place where we can start healing the damage that's been done. So yeah, I don't think anybody's going home anytime soon, but what I would say is that get out of your home, take it to the streets, and tell your government that you've had enough, and that's the quickest way to end this.
Mm-hmm. Chris, thank you so much. Thank you for spending some time with us, giving us an update on how things are going in Ottawa. Thank you very much. Again, so much love coming your way from viewers. A lot of people just thanking you for everything you've done. Gerald says, Chris, you're a great, honest man. You know, just many comments here, just thanking you for what you're doing, and thank you again for taking us down to the Parliament buildings and letting us all see how things are looking and just get a really good feel for the, you know, the Canadians that are down there and that are really pushing for our country to be set right again, and our country and our freedoms to be respected. And you know, again, it does not look like a crazy fringe minority. It looks like a lot of really good Canadians that are banding together right now.
Absolutely.
Well, have a good conversation with Mr. Scheer. I'll be interested to hear how that goes.
And I will let you know.
All right. And Chris, you know what? We would love to check in with you again. So you and I will stay in touch, okay? We'll do another check-in with you and see how things are going.
Sounds good. Thanks, Melanie. Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Bye.
And thanks to everyone for joining us. I've seen a few people looking. This is maybe, you know, you're catching us. You've just joined in. You can go to our website as well and see some of the work that we do. We are an independent media. We don't take bailout money from the government. So we report on true news, and we can bring you live coverage like this. And we try to be very transparent and very honest. And so you can go to our website, you can go to westernstandardonline.com and go to our membership page. You can check out our memberships. We feel that it's well worth what you get. You really do get what you pay for. It's $10 a month for a membership with us. And I believe it's $99 a year. Yes, $99 a year for a subscription. So it saves a little bit if you do a yearly subscription, and you will have access to our full stories website. We have a newsletter that goes out every morning with all of our stories that we do throughout the day. And so we would really love to have you come on board and support us so that we can do more coverage like this, and we can maybe send reporters to Ottawa and have them on, boots on the ground there. So we will keep you updated on anything that comes of the discussions that are happening right now at the Coutts border with the MLAs and the legal team that they've brought in. And again, just thank you for joining us. Thanks for supporting us. And we will check back in with you as soon as possible.